jokes are as broad as anything on a sitcom, but something about the way that the rhythm of it is laid out, and you learn that. So I would just say, like, learn both. Learn classic joke writing, and then really think about how people really talk. But I'm interested in how Cheeks, how do you think you make your jokes?
Yeah, me too, all that.
Because Cheeks did this without 20 years of experience. It took me 20 years to write, you know, if you like what I do, to learn how to do that. But Cheeks sort of started out writing like me right from the beginning. That's why I reached out to him, was like, did you steal my brain? Like,
no, I'm just funny. No, but I think that you can, I mean, yeah, there is an art to it. I studied at Second City.
Yeah, that's true. He has education.
You know, and I grew up, I think, well, I grew up very Nelly in Texas, you know. So I basically developed a very sharp sense of humor to kind of like, hey, you like me because I'm funny, right?
Don't get me.
Yeah, and I was obsessed with figuring out, like you say, like watching critically old TV shows and stuff that I grew up with. I'd be 8 years old and I'd be going like, why is it so funny that Lucy's about to do this? Like, what makes this scene, like, why? Why am I laughing at this? So just deconstructing, you know, things that you like that you think are funny, go backwards, and how did we know that was coming, and what are all the ways in which, like the layers of which, like why this is funny, they're using play on words and it's unexpected, things like that. Yeah.
And I actually think that the industry's done itself a little bit of a disservice by moving to the model where now your calling card in town as an aspiring writer is a spec pilot. So it's the first episode of a show you want to create. That means you're not being forced to watch other people's shows and get inside them as if you were a hired writer for that show and write a sample episode of an existing show, which used to be the model. So the script I used to get hired on Buffy was an NYPD Blue. And I had to, obviously, they're like the same show. I had to watch NYPD Blue and really think about Dennis Franz's character and what's the one thing I could put him through that pokes most closely at his emotional core, which is always a good question to ask yourself, whether you're writing for him or for Frasier or for Once Upon a Time, any character, like what one incident is going to most poke at their weak spot, and how does the show write that? How does it execute the rhythm of its lines, the rhythm of its structure for its show? Getting inside that for a show that already exists is one of the best ways to teach yourself how to write a sophisticated joke or just any line of dialogue, because you are writing the way they're very excellent, very trained writers write, and when you master it, you've absorbed their superpower. Try that. Thanks.
Thank you for coming. First of all, I just wanted to thank y'all for using your show for the platform that you're using it for. Very, very appreciated. And Jane, this question's for you. It's kind of always been a rumor, and it's kind of one I've refused to give up on, because I'm like, yeah, I want there to be hope. But is there ever any hope in any distant future or at all that they could possibly ever do a spinoff with Jamie Murray and Garrett David Lloyd from Warehouse? At all?
Oh, it's an interesting question. I really have kept myself out of the Warehouse world since writing the pilot, out of respect for Jack Kenny and the writers there who have done such an amazing job. I didn't want to watch it and be tempted to jump in there and muck up their plans. So I don't know. You're asking a question I have no basis to answer, but I'm sure it's a good one. And I'm sure they will hear about it, because there's a Warehouse panel. You can ask it there maybe and see if people smarter than me know the answer.
If Eddie knows, he'll blurt it out. Eddie McClintock. What you see is what you get with that guy.
Good afternoon.
Hi.
I was curious as to what your favorite character was to write for, past or present, and also what the hardest character you ever had to write was. So what kept you up at night? Who kept you up at night?
Yeah, my favorite to write for, there have been many. I always cite Anya on Buffy. So funny. Any character that can be that blunt is just fun to write for. Really, really fun. It's fun to write for Spike. I love Jonathan. On Battlestar, I loved Baltar. Oh my God, that was a dream. Writing Captain Jack is good, and Gwen. I love the way Gwen talks. And my first script, Russell went through and was like, yeah, we UK people don't really talk like this. And I said, ah. And then the second script I turned in, he was like, are you Welsh? You wrote her so well. And I said, oh my God, I learned how to write Welsh. So I felt like I nailed Gwen, and that felt really good. But now it's Cheeks and Sean. Like, Cheeks and Brady are these amazing characters to write, because they are like, they sort of came out of like two halves of Brad's own personality. So there's something wonderful about that, and they're so distinct, and they're punnier characters than I'm often allowed to write. You know, you write eight puns on a page, and usually there's someone going like, you can have 3. On this show, I write 8 puns on a page, and Cheeks says, I think we can get it to 12.
And then I cut it down to 6, but I just don't say that I am.
So yeah, there've been a lot of great questions. Oh, and the most difficult to write for. The most difficult characters are always the most sane and the most close to the center of the show and the most complicated. Buffy is really hard to write, because she has to, you can look at a line and know that's Anya. Buffy is so complicated, such a fully realized character that there's a zillion things she could say, and only one of them is going to be right for this moment. Much harder process. Always the person at the center. So you notice I didn't say Mal, even though Mal was fun to write. Like, he's at the center. Like, Wash was more fun to write, even though maybe writing for Mal was more satisfying because it was harder.
Over here.
Hi, I'm a huge fan. Obviously,
Thanks.
we're all here because we're fans.
I don't know, somebody could be guests, somebody could have been dragged, somebody could just be, you know, too hot from the outside.
On the one hand, I never want you to move away from writing television, because you're my hero in that you're this female, awesome genre television writer, and that's rare. But